Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Prahlad pacifies the Lord with prayers, text 26, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya Visko. Vahang Raja Prabhava Ishatamodhikesmin Jata Sureta Rakulet Kvatavanukampa Na Brahmano Natubhavasya Navairamaya Yanmer Pita Shirasi Padmakara Prasadaha. O my Lord, O Supreme, because I was born in a family full of the hellish material qualities of passion and ignorance, what is my position? And what is to be said of your causeless mercy, which was never offered even to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, or the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi? You never put your lotus hand upon their heads, but you have put it upon mine. But Prahlad Maharaj was surprised at the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. For although Prahlad was born in a demoniac family, and although the Lord had never before placed his lotus hand on the head of Brahma, Shiva, or the goddess of fortune, his constant companion, Lord Nrsimhadev kindly placed his hand on the head of Prahlad. This is the meaning of causeless mercy. The causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may be bestowed upon anyone, regardless of his position in this material world. Everyone is eligible to worship the Supreme Lord irrespective of his material position. This is confirmed in Bhagavad-gita. Mang chayo vyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitang brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Anyone who engages in continuous devotional service to the Lord is situated in the spiritual world and has nothing to do with the material qualities, Sattva-gun, Raja-gun, and Tama-gun. Because Prahlad Maharaj was situated on the spiritual platform, he had nothing to do with his body, which had been born of the modes of passion and ignorance. The symptoms of passion and ignorance are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as lust and hankering. Tadara justamo bhava kama lobha dayaschaye. Prahlad Maharaj, being a great devotee, thought the body born of his father to be born of passion and ignorance. But because Prahlad was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, his body did not belong to the material world. The pure Vaishnava's body is spiritualized even in this life. For example, when iron is put into a fire, it becomes red hot and is no longer iron but fire. Similarly, the so-called material bodies of devotees who fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord, being constantly in the fire of spiritual life, have nothing to do with matter, but are spiritualized. Srila Madhva Acharya remarks that the goddess of fortune, the mother of the universe, could not get mercy similar to that which was offered to Prahlad Maharaj. For although the goddess of fortune is always a constant companion of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is more inclined to his devotees. In other words, devotional service is so great that when it is offered even by those born in low families, the Lord accepts it as being more valuable than the service offered by the goddess of fortune. Lord Brahma, King Indra, and the other demigods living in the upper planetary systems are situated in a different spirit of consciousness, and therefore they are sometimes troubled by demons. But a devotee, even if situated in the lower planets, enjoys life in Krishna consciousness under any circumstances. Paratasratah karmata, as he acts himself, as he is instructed by others, or as he performs his material activities, he enjoys life in every respect. In this regard, Madhvacharya quotes the following verses, which are mentioned in the Brahma Tarka. Shri Brahma Brahma Vindradi Shri Katat Stri Purus Shtutaha Tadanye Chakrama Deva Sada Mukto Smitavapi Hari Bhakto Chatajgyane Sukhe Chanyamenatu Paratah Svatah Karmato Va Nakatan Chittadanyata. This chapter mostly consists of prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to Nrsimhadev as is indicated by the chapter titled Prahlad Pacifies the Lord with Prayers. And actually there are so many important instructions. Usually, at least in the Christian world, when we think about prayers, it's just, God give me this, God give me that. But Prahlad's prayers, they're full of so many instructions. It's the prayer that consists of, or a series of prayers will consist of various parts. Usually the beginning is stuti. It means to glorify the Lord by describing His qualities. Before you just march in and say, here, give me my daily bread, you should, whatever you desire, whether it's daily bread or whatever, first of all we should glorify the Lord, not only demanding, give me this, give me that. Even if we pray for pure devotional service, then we should glorify the Lord. Of course, a pure devotee, he always likes to glorify the Lord, but even that is the etiquette. Even if one comes with some material desire, he should first of all glorify the Lord. Say something describing His qualities. Because in this way, apart from the materialistic desire that he wants fulfilled, apart from expressing a material desire, that he will become attracted to Krishna. He offers some devotion. At least there should be something offered. And if you are asking for something, you should offer something. So if you offer praise to the Lord, then naturally by doing so, some feeling of appreciation for Him will come. So, stuti, one should offer glorification. Then there is prarthana, which means expressing some request. And there's also vigyapti, which means to express one's heart's feelings. That means if one is feeling for Krishna, he's not just desiring something, but he's expressing his heart's feelings. I simply wish to be engaged in your devotional service or whatever it may be. Here Prahlad Maharaj he's described some of the situation of himself. He's doing that. These are very, apart from all the philosophical instructions which Prahlad gives in this chapter, it's also very personal. He's describing, this is my own situation. I'm born in a demoniac family. In this prayer that we're reading today and several other prayers, Prahlad is expressing his surprise that I'm such a fallen condition, born of this great demon. But still, the Lord has openly expressed more mercy to me than even Lakshmi, than Brahma, than Shiva, openly, in front of everyone. He's shown, I like this little thing, right on the hand. So he's surprised. Probably everyone else is surprised. Actually, when dealing with Krishna, there shouldn't be any surprise, because everything is possible for Krishna. But nevertheless, it's surprising. Otherwise, if there's no surprise, then everything becomes stereotyped. There are different emotions. So Prahlad was surprised. Actually, we shouldn't be surprised, because the Supreme Lord, He's unlimited. He can do anything. So logically speaking, if we accept that the Supreme Lord is unlimited, then there should be no surprise at anything He does. But there is. Because the jiva is so limited, that even though he knows theoretically that Krishna is unlimited, still, because he's so limited, his own personal experience is so limited, then seeing Krishna's unlimited potencies, he becomes surprised. Of course, we know that when the cowherd boys were entering the mouth of Aghasura, they were so much confident of Krishna's protection. It's surprising that they should enter the mouth of a big snake. Why should they do that? That is surprising. Even Krishna was surprised. You see, they're entering the mouth of a snake. People don't usually do that. I mean, you don't usually walk into trouble. So you don't usually walk into the cage of a tiger. But Krishna was surprised. But they were so much confident of Krishna's being able to protect them, even though Krishna was standing in front of them, just like a young boy, and they would fight with him and play with him. But they'd seen him kill so many demons that they were fully confident that even this huge snake will enter into the stomach, and Krishna will save us. Whatever happens, Krishna will save us. They were fully confident. The same thing when Krishna was holding the Govardhan hill. They didn't think that Krishna is anything special. He's holding it up. He must be getting tired now. Okay, we'll hold it. So that's Vrindavan, where they don't take Krishna to be. They don't take him to be materially much more than them. They don't take him to be much more powerful. They just take him to be one of them. But here Prahlad Maharaj is seeing the opulence of the Lord in terms of his mercy. Now the Supreme Lord had already shown his opulence of power and anger in destroying Hiranyakashipu, who all the demigods together were afraid of, and destroying his army. So that was one opulence, but Prahlad isn't expressing surprise at that. He's expressing surprise at the Lord showing him mercy, which was not even given to Brahma, Shiva, Lakshmi, and what to speak of so many other devotees. It's shown more inclination. Even Brahma, when they were all the demigods, they were offering prayers, all demigods and rishis. Lakshmi also was offering prayers to the angry Nrsimhadev. Still, he was still angry, still feeling angry. So then Brahma pushed forward. Prahlad, you go forward, because Nrsimhadev has come for you. When all the demigods were being harassed by Nrsimhadev, then he didn't come for them. He didn't come, of course, ultimately he came for their sake. When he killed Nrsimhadev, he benefited the demigods. But that the demigods were being harassed by Hiranyakashipu, the Lord, he didn't take it so seriously. But Prahlad, when Hiranyakashipu was harassing him, he was watching. So many ways he harassed him. So many ways Hiranyakashipu harassed Prahlad. That also, it could be said, why didn't he come immediately? Why didn't, as soon as Hiranyakashipu started oppressing him, why didn't he come immediately? Well, that is also, the Lord shows the character of his devotees. Many times people ask, why did the Pandavas, they went through so many difficulties? Why didn't the Lord protect them? Even Bhishma was expressing surprise. That they come in such a nice family, they're representative of the demigods, they have all good qualities, and Krishna is personally their friend, yet they have to suffer so much. Why? And often devotees themselves, they say, I took to devotional service, still I have so many difficulties. Why? Well, in the case of great devotees like the Pandavas and Prahlad, that is to show the character. The Lord shows the character of his devotees. That even in the greatest difficulties, they don't flinch. Their Krishna consciousness is not disturbed. What a lesson! Because we see so many people take to Krishna consciousness, but some difficulties, and then they become disturbed. And they go back to material life, which is extremely foolish. What could be more foolish? That even if there are so many difficulties, but it's only Maya. How can we think that if we go back to material life, things will improve? It's simply material consciousness. Even if there are, as we have seen, maybe not so much directly here in the Czech ISKCON Yatra. There are many problems in our movement, but then we think that, well, I shall go to Maya. I'll drink, I'll smoke, I'll go to the movies, and everything like this. It's greatly foolish. That means we didn't actually understand our Krishna consciousness or commit ourselves to that. First thing is, anyway, there's no happiness in material life. So, what are you going to do going to that? But the thought that It's the thought that I should be satisfied, which is antithetical to Krishna consciousness. I'm feeling some disturbance living in the temple or whatever, or associating with devotees. Therefore I should be, and I should find association with materialistic people. Very foolish. It's foolish, and where's the bhakti? Where's the attachment to Krishna? If we simply go away. So that should be the resolve of a devotee. Why we're studying Bhagavatam? Practically the whole Bhagavatam, all through, it's just full of narrations of devotees in difficulties. Practically. Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, the Vrajavasis were all the time, the demons were coming. They're all the devotees. Krishna, he took all his devotees, took them out from Mathura to Dwarka because of the threat of Jarasandha on one side and Kaliyavana on the other side. So, all the way through, simply difficulties. Who else? Practically all the stories of the devotees, the Pandavas. Prithu Maharaj, we don't see he personally had to go through difficulties, but he had a lot of responsibility. He had the whole earth planet, all his citizens, they were starving. He had to do something about it. So it wasn't that he was just sitting on his throne being glorified. He told the people who were glorifying him, stop glorifying me. Let me do something first. You're simply glorifying me. I didn't do anything for anybody. What's the use of glorifying me? So he took up his duty. Ramchandra Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally accepted so many difficulties for the sake of showing the path of dharma. That if one wants to lead a religious life, dharmic life, then he has to accept difficulties, because we hear a lot of these days about principles. People talk about principle-centered living. Actually, that is dharma. Dharma means, but which principles? The principles of dharma. One should live for dharma. One should uphold the dharmic principles. We see that one example is there, the Harai Pandit, the father of Nityananda Prabhu. He promised, this one sadhu came and said, I want something from you. You give me whatever I ask for, you should give. So he's a poor Brahmin. He doesn't, whatever he gets by begging, and whatever, it doesn't matter. If anything goes, what has he got in it? What does a sadhu want? Just, you take whatever you want, you give me your son. Nityananda. So then he thought, I won't give him. Then he thought, if I don't give him, then that will be bad for my son, because I'll set a bad example. If I promise to give something to a sadhu, but I don't, then that will be bad for my son. He'll get a bad instruction from his father. So even though it was worse than death, and actually not only he but the whole village just died, and they all passed away in separation from Nityananda. But he thought, I have to follow the path of dharma. So there will be many difficulties. There's no easy path in this material world. Even if you try to have an easy life, there's no such thing. If you think, well, there's too many difficulties in Krishna consciousness, let me just lead a normal, happy, comfortable life. There's no such thing. It's just a big illusion. There's no comfort in this. There's no comfort in the material world, there's no happiness. So we have to accept some difficulties. So why not accept the difficulties which are given as Krishna's mercy, which by facing them with faith in Krishna, then we can become purified. And actually, at least my experience is that unless there are some difficulties, it's difficult to get the same determination, unless there's some challenge or obstacle in Krishna's service. And when there are severe difficulties, at least what we consider severe, we're tiny living beings. And then we face them in a mode of service to Krishna. Let me take on these difficulties to serve Krishna. Then we're forced to pray to Krishna. Krishna, please help. And that is actually the greatest bliss. We actually we feel so much mercy from Krishna when we take on so many difficulties in His service. That's why Prabhupada said that spiritual advancement and an easygoing life do not go well together. And Prabhupada was always pushing his disciples. Distribute more books, open more centers. So many challenges he gave them, because he knew that by facing these challenges, they'd become purified. And if we don't have challenges in Krishna's service, then we'll be in the temple ringing the bell and filling our bellies and not doing much else. So, challenges required, and actually the more difficulties there are, the more we should know that this is Krishna's mercy only. And if we preach more and more, then definitely difficulties will come. Because some people won't like it. They'll protest. But if we don't preach it, if we don't preach more and more, and if we don't take difficulties in Krishna's service, then we'll get difficulties from Maya. We may have a very comfortable life, but the mind will give us so many problems. So it's better to take difficulties in Krishna's service. We see that nowadays there are people who are posing themselves as more advanced than Prabhupada and all nonsense. Simply to talk about so-called higher levels, that doesn't mean you're advanced. Anyone can read a book and memorize and speak about gopis and this and that. But who actually took the difficulty to go out in the world and serve Krishna? Who gave his blood, as Prabhupada said, to make one devotee we have to give gallons of blood. Who took the trouble to do it? Prabhupada did that. There's no comparison what Prabhupada has done. So Prahlad Maharaj, he got so much mercy from the Lord, which even Lakshmi did. It's surprising. She's constantly associated with the Lord. Sometimes these things are difficult to understand. Nrsimhadev is showing the position that Prahlad, he suffered so much from it. He could have said Hiranyakashipu wanted to make him the heir to his great kingdom. Of course, he thought he was going to live forever, but you enjoy with me, you'll have all facilities. All he had to do was say yes, but he said no. I want Krishna. I don't care. I don't care for your useless kingdom or the whole universe and its sense gratification. I want Krishna. And for Hiranyakashipu, anything but Krishna. It's the point of his hate, the focus of his hatred was Krishna. So Prahlad could have just said, okay, I won't be a devotee. I'll be your son, or however you like. But no. He rejected all material opulence and facilities and comforts and accepted unlimited difficulties for the sake of Krishna. So Krishna recognized that. Prabhupada sometimes used to say, you have to try to become recognized by Krishna. Do something to become recognized by Krishna. What service? What service we have done? Hare Krishna. Short class. Hare Krishna. Any question?
You were speaking about previously about controlling the senses and like horses. And sometimes these reins should be a little bit, not so tight.
Yeah, it shouldn't be fully tight.
Yeah, fully tight.
It should be a little slack. You should allow a little slack.
Yeah. What does it mean in a devotional life? Because it's, we see at the present tendency in the society is to put these reins
Very slack. Well, I described that. I described that you allow a little slack, but basically it's tight and it's under control.
Yeah.
But there's a little slack allowed, not fully tight. That means we can be a little flexible. That basically we follow all the principles, but a little flexible. I think I gave was that talking about Mangalati at the same time? Maybe that was another time in the last few days. Because that example, Prabhupada said that the only excuse for not going to Mangalati is death. So I gave that in. So that means that if you have a high fever or something, that, alright, a little flexible, you may not need to go, but we shouldn't preach like that. That if you're sick, don't go to Mangalati. We should preach, if you're sick, go. And if you can't go, then go. If you actually physically can't move, then what are you going to do? But if we preach that if you're sick, don't go to Mangalati, then every morning you wake up, you'll find there's always some pain, there's some itch in your head, or some pain in your ear, or some pain in your throat, or some itching in your toe, or something. So, I have to rest, I'm sick. Prabhupada also said if you don't go to Mangalati, then you should either go to Mangalati or starve. So you should give prasada. So I've seen in some temples, some devotees, they have a habit of daily not going to Mangalati, and they take prasada at midday. Well, it's just there. Who knows? Maybe they take breakfast. It's somehow some secret. Ultimately, we have to be sincere, and we should be strict. Who's living in the temple? If you don't want to follow the principles, you can make your own arrangement. But managing an institution, especially a spiritual institution, is not easy because the devotees come and then they're doing service, and then sometimes after doing service for many years, then they become slack, too slack. And what do? And they fall below the level of service. They may also have some responsibility and some position. So adjusting all these things is not easy.
The border of this, for example, is like moving in the direction that we should take some things which are, according to our civilization here in the West, acceptable to some degree if it's not so sinful. Like you can watch a movie which is not sinful, or you can
watching a movie is directly against Prabhupada's instructions. He several times mentions. And there's no need. You say, watch a movie, what? What's it?
Entertainment.
What entertainment? Entertainment means chant Hare Krishna. We have so much. Make your own drama. We have so many things. That will kill devotional life. It's very plain. If you start watching movies and this and that, it's going to kill your devotional service. There's so much nectar in these books. You can go out and preach instead of going to his bed of doing 2 hours the movies run for. Go out. Go door to door, meet people. That's also why Prabhupada, he was pushing the movement that everyone should be busy. If you have so much engagement, then you'll be blissful. Now I was also saying at the summer camp, winter camp, that don't have TVs. People, when I say this, which I often say, people think it's a very revolutionary thing to say, but actually it's just plain common sense. If you want to be a devotee, then don't watch TV. Don't have a TV. People say, well, I'm just watching the news. And then there's some educational program, something about lizards in South America or something. So it's also, it's educational. And then gradually, and then there's a drama. It's Shakespeare, so it's quite cultured. This way, fall down. You don't have to watch the news. It's not required. Why do you need to watch the news? If there's anything major, then you'll get to hear about it. And it won't affect you that much. saw the newspaper. Someone was telling me there was a meeting in Russia. I was told there was a meeting between this Bush and Putin in Ljubljana. I had no idea. But actually, sometimes it's useful, especially in India if you're traveling. So I only found out because someone sent me an email. If I'd have seen the paper, I would have known that there was a bridge collapse in South India. So therefore, my plans to travel on that route by train had to be cancelled. But I didn't. If I'd have seen the newspaper, I would have known earlier. So it's useful traveling in India because sometimes there's a cyclone here or a riot there. I also got news. Someone sent me, don't come to Tamil Nadu now, there's riots. So it can be useful. But just like that. Otherwise, going deeply, this politician said this. And you can do also for public preaching. Sometimes it's useful. You say, Prabhupada, you see his old BTGs back in the 1950s. He used to take some quote from the newspaper and give some comment. So it can be, but it requires Krishna consciousness. No? Otherwise we become absorbed in this, what these politicians say, and what that, this political crisis and that, which ultimately doesn't affect our lives that much. And we become absorbed in politician, at least in India the papers are full of politicians, what they're saying. Politician katha instead of Krishna katha. We have so many of these books we have to read, and there's so much. Where's the time for reading so many other things and wasting time? Go to the cinema? What a waste of time. And it's polluted. Not only is it wasting time, it's so polluted. Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad-gita, that disturbance of the mind is due to lack of a goal in life. We should have some mission in our lives. If we have some mission, then we won't have any time for so many things, because we're going to get something done in Krishna's service. But that was very much Prabhupada's mood. You have to do something for Krishna. The modern mood in our society is to some extent influenced by the Goya Math and Babaji's, that you should do a lot of bhajan and sadhana, which is not necessarily bad. But unless we have a preaching mood, then if we give all the time for bhajan and sadhana, and then we also have time for. We also we have so much time in the day that other things can creep in. Anything else?
Should we try to pray to the Lord in our own way, by our own words, or rather to use some bona fide prayers like previous acharyas or great devotees?
Well, Prabhupada mentions in the purport that we should pray the prayers given by great devotees. There are so many. We can also pray for some specific thing. That, dear Lord, I'm now going to India to serve you, so please guide me in the proper way, that I may serve you properly. You can have some personal prayer like that also. Daily we can pray like that today I have this service to perform. Please help me to do that. Mamanasmara yupyacha, Krishna says in Gita. Remember me and pray. Hare Krishna.